Welcome back, everybody. My name is Lindsay. This is Linda's Investing, and I have my co-host from Real Estate Jefas. Our new podcast is out on Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere that you can download a show. And you can listen to us, come like us, subscribe, and we're bringing you material every week. But today, Violeta and I, we wanted to look at this video of Graham Stephan, which I'm
Yeah,
sure a lot of people have seen already, but we wanted to have like our own little take on what's going on with Graham.
yeah. I just saw his video because Lynn sent it to me, and I used to watch Graham a while back, and then um, he had like kind of like a mindset shift, and I think around 2020 or something when I kind of like stopped following him and stuff. But yeah, he was actually one of the ones that when I first started my like real estate investing journey, he was one of the people that I followed. And because I liked his mindset back then of like the whole not just raising rents every any chance that you get just because, like treating tenants with like empathy and stuff. And so like his ethics really like had me, actually that's what kind of like set my mindset, my current mindset of how my real estate investing. But then like I stopped following him because I don't know, like once he moved to Vegas and a little bit after he started, I guess his podcast or something, like he just like shifted a little bit. So then I just stopped following him. So I haven't even seen him for years. And then Lynn sent me this, and I have some thoughts, especially since, I followed him in his earlier years, and then it's kind of like a surprise of how his mentality has shifted. So yeah, but yeah, like Lynn was saying, I'll let Lynn talk about what this video he's kind of like, I guess the intro to his video and why we're choosing this one to kind of react.
Yeah, and let's listen to him talk a little bit about his whole journey. So we're gonna play just a little bit, guys. Don't get too tune out.
It's Graham here. So I really didn't want to make this video. In fact, I've been putting it off for months because I don't like airing out my grievances to millions of people, but I have just had enough. I am tired of dealing with failed California policies, red tape, restrictions, and endless bureaucracy to the point where I'm going to start selling off everything that I own there. Honestly, the situation there has just gotten so bad that I can't justify investing any more money into a city that's obviously headed down the wrong direction. So yeah, I'm going to talk very openly about what's been going on these last few months with the hope that sharing my story could help a few people avoid the same mistakes as I've made, or best case scenario, we could find a solution for a city that is obviously very broken. Oh, and also, big thank you to Incogni for sponsoring this video and helping me out with some of this, but is to be able to ask the realtor how to get started in the business and GG. I'm in the middle of buying houses through me, and within a few years, I started making more money than I ever thought was imaginable. So what did I do? I used that money to buy my first house for $59,500. It was 90 minutes away from where I worked, it was owned by the bank, it needed a complete renovation, and I had it completely fixed up because no one wanted to live there. Like, to give you an idea of just how dilapidated this house was, it was completely filled with trash. The entire house smelled like cat urine, and there was so much junk in there that when we actually cleared it out, there were rooms in the house that we didn't even know existed. Thankfully, after a few weeks of renovation, I later rented it out. I started making more commissions as a real estate agent, and I used all of that to invest back into buying more property. Basically, my entire philosophy was this: I would only buy the properties that no one else wanted to live in because they required so much work. I'm talking brand new kitchens, bathrooms, floors, paint, landscape, roof, and so on. I would fix it up, I would move in as a primary residence, and then I would later rent it out when I saved up enough money to buy something else. For me, I just thought this was my path forever. Like, there's something really special about buying something undesirable and then making it look brand new again, without just turning it into one of those awful gray IKEA renovations that you see every developer slap together in a weekend. And usually when I'm buying a property in Los Angeles, I'm spending anywhere between $50,000 to sometimes more than $200,000 sprucing it up. And my thought was that if I could just make my place nicer than everything else on the market, I get a better tenant, I have less vacancy, they are happier, they stay longer, I have less turnover, and it's a win-win for everybody. Well, I am proud to say that for the first 10 years of doing this, everything went really well. Property values were increasing, I locked in low mortgages, rents were steady, and I continued to look for properties that I could buy and invest into with the expectation that I could just make them nicer. But in 2020, everything changed. All of a
All
sudden,
right, so
Los
pause
Angeles
here.
enacted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I guess I want to just like off the bat, like my first impression of when he started this rant. Obviously, it's a rant video. Um, And to me, it's like I can already tell that he's going to be a little bit. He has like obviously a chip on his shoulder, so it's kind of like when I saw this video again. I saw him when he was mentioning like when he first started his journey and doing like that, his first investments and stuff, which is what like drew me to him. Where like how he was talking, like he was taking houses that were like not livable and making them available for people and everything. So he went kind of like mostly house hacking, well, a live and flip basically, and then turning them into rentals. So yeah, like you said you followed him at the beginning too.
Yeah, I did not follow him at the beginning. Actually, I just found out about him. Like,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not well versed. I listened to Bigger Pockets and all the basically Brandon Turner, David Green, all of the girls that are on there, like even Pace Morby. But it wasn't until this year's conference of the Aura that everybody was excited to see Graham, and I was just like, I don't know who he is. So I started looking at all of his videos, and the majority of the videos that I saw of him were how he now has transitioned from, used to be a realtor, used to
Hmm.
sell houses for profit, and then reinvested that capital into his rentals that he had. But since I started hearing from him in February, all I hear was like everything is just not real estate driven. Everything is just like better you rent than anything buy. And then how real estate is not going to make you wealthy, and it's not going to retire you. It's not like it's more work than it's actually worth.
Yeah, that's
Right?
what I'm talking about. Like when I first, saw him, he had a different viewpoint, and Jace was, it says like sounds like a story of everyone that started in real estate, and yeah, like it's a lot of us like will get that bad tenant or that bad investment, and it definitely like pisses you off and everything, but like for someone that was a realtor and has been doing it for so long, it kind of like shocks me of how like mad he is about it. And we'll see more throughout the video and everything like that, because he was more positive early on, obviously, and maybe that was just kind of like just his optimism and like wanting to build wealth and all that, because he even did a joint venture with a subscriber for opening kind of like a coffee, like he would sell coffee grounds or something. I don't know whatever happened to that. I know like um towards the time that I stopped following him, it was having like some issues because obviously COVID, and so there was issues with like the shipping and all that stuff. So I don't know whatever happened to that. But yeah, I think like now he's definitely airing out like his frustration, especially when he talks about like why. So I guess we could go into that because I have some thoughts about that too. When he starts talking about like everything that went wrong when initially everything went right. He says 10 years, like he was doing good, and then he hits this one thing
Yeah,
and
I also want to mention from people that I know too, like from the beginning, everybody has like the impression of real estate is going to be passive, that it's going to be hands off, and it's not. Right? It's a business like any other business. You're going to have to put work on it. Depending on how much money return you have to put more work into it. But if you want easy peasy, you buy turnkeys, and you don't have to like really think about it much, even placing the tenant. You get a property manager and all those things, and it's like hands off, but your return is going to be lower. Right? So he was trying to make it in a place like LA or in LA County or outside Lake County, getting a house for $59,000. Of course, you're gonna have to put, even like 20 years ago, you're gonna put out a lot of work and a lot of money to make that place livable, to make that place competitive. Uh,
yeah.
but the amount of work that he put down there, like, was retributed. I remember watching his videos, like past content, that he would even be able to burr out of a house there and
Yeah.
completely leave no money behind in the deal. And at those price points, like, yeah, who is going to want to buy a house at $60,000, put $200,000 in it, wait for all of that to be done and about, and with the timelines of rehab and everything, it's going to take like a year or two for you to even see that money back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me go play a little bit more of his video.
An eviction moratorium, meaning a tenant could not be evicted if they failed to pay their rent. And this lasted for 3 years. Yes, you heard that correctly. In Los Angeles, it was still a health risk to evict a tenant who hadn't paid their rent in 3 years. Meanwhile, the landlord was still responsible for the mortgage, property taxes, insurance, repairs, upkeep, you name it. Now, even though I had zero issues, and thankfully none of my properties were affected, I just didn't like the fact that the city was putting the entire financial burden of housing on the landlord. Like, despite this idea that landlords are these rich oligarchs drinking champagne on their yachts, the reality is that most landlords are mom and pop people who rely on that income to help supplement their expenses. Some of them are accidental landlords who had to rent out their home because they could no longer afford it. Some people are renting out houses that have been passed down from generations. Some people have also just diligently saved for sometimes decades to be able to buy a property in the first place because they don't trust the stock market. So even though some people might think, oh, I pay $3,000 a month in rent, so they must be making a fortune, the reality is, I know plenty of landlords who aren't even breaking even or are even operating at a loss because they intend to keep the property and eventually be able to move back into it. Anyway, I say all of this because in 2020, Los Angeles started getting way more restrictive on landlords. They enacted rent freezes, crime spiked, homelessness got worse, despite a citywide eviction ban, and I subsequently picked up and moved to Las Vegas because the quality of life was better. But in terms of my
So
existing
pause
properties there, I
here
just thought to
because I want to
myself,
go to where he was talking about, because I was laughing. I was like, you weren't even affected in your ranting about the whole COVID thing, which this is where I'm kind of like shocked a little bit with his mindset shift, because he used to be kind of a little bit more level headed and kind of do both sides. Like, okay, yeah, it sucks that I can't evict them, but also their people, their tenants were going through a freaking pandemic and stuff. And he didn't even mention all the help that was available, because I had the same issue. Because he wants to just say like California, but my property in Virginia, when I had that house, that was my first house that I bought, and I turned it into a rental. And I had that issue where Virginia did the same thing, and I could not evict anybody because of COVID and stuff. And luckily it started off good. My tenant was pretty good. He paid what he can. Sometimes he was a little short, sometimes he like made up for it and stuff like that. But I understood because it was freaking COVID. Like, nobody was working. He was a shipyard worker. I got lucky because I was in the military, so I had a stable paycheck if I was still at home, right? Like during the whole pandemic and stuff. But these tenants, what are you going to do? You can't kick them out and then try to get another tenant. Like, everyone's kind of like dealing with the same issue of like shorter hours and less income. But there was definitely some options available, like rent assistance. There was this the government, like for Virginia, I forget what it was called, but basically the tenant and the land, like I would fill out a form, and then the tenant would fill out the form as well, and then we'd send it off, and then basically the state would pay their rent to, so basically rent relief, right? And then you also had the option of talking to like your mortgage lender. There was the ability to kind of do some deal with them and get some help, and they provided some assistance there, and kind of like a little bit more lenient if you got behind on payments. So I think I just don't like that he just kind of like, and I get it, it's YouTube, so it's like he's trying, especially it's a sponsored video, so obviously he's trying to um push that. But I just didn't like that. Like, okay, yes, it was bad, but also you didn't talk about all the of help that was available, and also it was a pandemic, so like you're putting all this with something that was an outlier, especially when you had 10 good years, like old guy says.
Yeah. And also at that time, Graham was a big person already, and he had, not that it's an excuse whatsoever, but he had the ability to sustain, let's say, if the tenants, which that didn't happen, right? If the tenants stopped paying. But like you said, there was a rental assistance programs available for tenants, and that the lenders could even initiate with the tenant's consent if that's something that would do. And also there's like you mentioned, the mortgage programs that they would not take payments for the moratorium problem timeline, and they would add it to at the end of like the year, like when your loan was due, let's say in 2045, then they would add those payments more so at the end of the things. And I remember there was some lenders that took advantage of that, because if I don't remember mistaken correctly, there were a lot of business loans that were given out at 0% interest as well.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people just opened an LLC and took advantage of those
Was it
loans, which was
the
kind of crazy.
PPP loans or something? I think that's what it was. I remember, and then a whole bunch got like, forgiven and stuff. Yeah, there was a lot of help too.
Hmm.
And then he also mentions about like the rent hikes. It's like the rent caps, basically. I'm kind of on the fence on that one because I see it on both sides. Like, because I've been obviously a tenant, and like it's annoying that they just raise the rent. And for him, it's kind of weird because he built his platform on the mentality, and he talks about it a little bit later about he doesn't raise the rents just to raise the rent. So like, why does a rent cap bother you so much when you already have that philosophy of like, I'm not going to raise the rents just because. And he talks about like he didn't raise the rents for some of his tenants for years. So I'm confused on why he's so like, that bothers him so much, basically. But I can understand it's definitely like frustrating on the landlord side, but I could see it on the tenant side as well, because we had that issue again, kind of like military side. As soon as like our pay went up to accommodate for the higher rent, then they'd go turn around and raise the rent again. So it was just kind of like a cycle. It was just so annoying. But I think Jay says, I'm just going to read a comment real quick. Even if you win lottery, there would be issues and lots of problems. Seems like it's something that comes with money. Yeah. And then money solves a lot of problems. He has so much. If I had that much, I'd probably sell too, maybe find some B class stuff to offset taxes. Yeah. That's where I am kind of thinking too, like, dude, just like, if you don't like it, okay, there's so many other states. Like he
Yeah,
did years of Los Angeles.
he did paint it like he went to Vegas for a higher quality of living. But if I was to just deduce like why he went to Vegas because there's no income tax in Vegas. Let's just
Yeah,
call that
basically.
an orange. Like that's exactly what happened. But no, yeah, I definitely from when I started listening to Graham, like the whole real estate world that he came from, it's definitely being diminished by the fact that he has a YouTube business that makes like
Mhm.
thousands of dollars. And like old guy RI says, like if you're making that much money from your business, and that's something you enjoy, you're passionate about, and you want to continue doing, when you have this other stream of income, because I'm assuming he still gets money from his properties, but it's taking you away from the thing that you love and you're passionate about. It's just like it's extremely work, like so much work for just the little bit of income that you get. But
Yeah.
I also see this from people that I know in which they have gained their wealth from real estate. I know people that have retired from real estate and now they're moving onto other business ventures or other types of income, and
Mhm.
they start bashing real estate, even though real estate is the thing that
Yeah, that's what got
extremely
them.
border them into wealth.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it feels like with him. He's just like, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's keep on watching the video.
You know what? It really doesn't matter that much. I enjoy my tenants. They're awesome. I hope they stay as long as they want to. I don't like raising rent anyway. Everything
See,
is somewhat
that's what's
stable. I'm just going to keep it going. That was, unfortunately, until earlier this year. Around January of 2025, I began looking into building out what's called an ADU, or a detached dwelling unit, which essentially allows you to take an old structure and turn that into a completely separate living quarters. Like, I calculated that I could spend about $220,000, build a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 700 square foot home, rent it out at market rates, and I've just added much needed inventory to the housing market. Someone gets a great place to stay, and I'm able to invest my money back into the housing market for a decent return. How bad could it possibly be? Well, I'll tell you. A nightmare. Although before we go into that, here's something that really surprised me. The moment you start dealing with real estate, especially when it comes to applications, permits, and filings, your
Oh, you can
information
skip this part
becomes
because this is
public.
where he goes
Anyone
into
is
his
able to Google
sponsorship.
Yeah.
Uh,
they keep you updated every step and see what you think and get a full refund if you're not in Los Angeles. Let's talk about the permitting process. That took us about
Okay, this
3
is where
months to
it's
get
funny.
approved, which required me to also pay more than $4,000 in permit fees to the city before even breaking ground. But you know what? Fine. That's to be expected. We're building something new. Whatever. I paid it, and once that was approved, we began building. That process went pretty quickly. Really, within a few months, it was almost done. And by the time July rolled around, I found someone who was willing to move in and take it September 1st. However, in order for a tenant to move in, you need what's called a final inspection so that they could issue what's called a certificate of occupancy, which basically says that the city has come, they've looked at the unit, and they say it is now legally deemed as a habitable structure. Great, we're at the final stretch. Should be easy. Now, after 2 weeks of delays, the inspector comes and fails the unit because the AC condenser doesn't have the proper drain line. And this is where things take a turn for the worst. When the inspector failed the unit, my contractor says, "Oh, perfect. I can install it right now. It'll take about 10 to 20 minutes."
So
And then
pause right here
because that's
because
the
I
only thing you
think
wanted.
this is where it kind of like makes me laugh. So if you notice on his thing, it says that the inspection was basically August 29th, but you already had a tenant waiting for September 1st. So that's kind of like a thing for you. Like you chose to already have that tenant waiting and everything like that. So you're salty because you have to get an inspection that is to protect the tenant to make sure you're not like a slumlord or something. So I think that just makes me laugh that he's um, a little salty about that. I was like, dude, you waited till last minute and or got a tenant before it was even able. Like, what if like something other major, like you would have had to prolong it? So um having a tenant already before the occupancy, I don't know if I would have done that, but I mean, it says when we started in 2019, I followed him, Rose, Han, and Meet Kevin. They motivated me to learn more, but yes, they all pivoted soon after, and I stopped following them. They lead me to a Zuber Dome. Um, how
So I will go.
I owe them a lot, I guess. Yeah, same thing. I feel like they started off good, and then I don't know what happened. Like he started hanging out with like other people that probably got like I don't know, because I definitely saw his mindset once he moved to Las Vegas and he started hanging out with other people, I guess, or I don't know what happened, but somebody got in his head and now he's over here ranting.
Let's see.
But this inspector said, "Hey, sorry, it's Friday. It's like 4:30 p.m. This is my last one. I'm going to have to come back again next week." Okay, fine. So we tried scheduling the same inspector to come back the following week, but we got bounced around from person to person to person. Nothing was confirmed. And then about a week later, they assigned us a new inspector. Well, this new inspector shows up, and we're thinking, this is going to be a piece of cake. It was just this one little drain line that needed to be fixed. He's going to go and look at that, see it's done, everything else is good to go. But instead, this inspector now notes other things that he wants done that the prior inspector never even required or mentioned. Apparently, I didn't realize that it's pretty common that when you switch inspectors, each one of them has their own requirements that they want done, independent of everything else. And every inspector, for the most part, when they're brand new on the project, they just go and mention something to give the appearance, I don't know, that they're doing their job or something. So anyway, once again, we make
Wait, so
all of
pause
these
here
new
because I do
changes.
want to mention that because I do get his rant, but I also want to um two at Homestead was just kind of like had a comment, but not raising rents can turn you into a slumlord. Got to keep up with inflation and maintenance and can be expensive. Yes. Yeah. So I agree with that and stuff. So that's definitely something to think about and kind of like balance when you're raising rents and all that, especially right now with everything like has the cost has gone up. But I do want to like say about the inspector portion
You're on the inspector side.
because yeah, I've been an inspector, right? So like a little bit about of my background. I have a background in occupational safety and health, and so in the Navy I did safety inspection, workplace hazard assessments, and stuff like that. So I was the person that went to these ships and to these squadrons, like to inspect your programs and your workplaces and stuff like that. So I understand his rant because it is true, and but that I feel is like a human factor, and for someone that's been in for like 10 years in the or at this point way longer in the real estate game, I think he should understand that you know that it is what it is. Like you're gonna have one guy that is a little bit more nitpicky, and somebody else might be like heading towards retirement. I don't know what's going on with my phone, but heading towards retirement, just be more laid back, right? And I saw that too, and I've had those fights too when I went to inspect, and I'm a little bit more thorough, and each inspector has their own thing that they prioritize. So for me, I prioritize like the respiratory protection program and hearing, because definitely those are my concerns, that you're not exposed to a chemical or something that can give you cancer, or your hearing, because I already have tinnitus on the right ear, so that's kind of like a special to me, because I suffer with tinnitus. It's a pain in the butt to try to go to sleep at night when you have ringing in your ears. So like it kind of is, it is what it is. This is, I to me, is something that is a skill that some investors need to build on, of relationship building. I feel like maybe he was a little maybe naggy or something. I don't know. I mean, just because of this video. So assuming maybe you didn't like come off on the right foot, especially since you probably already was like, well, I have a tenant waiting on September 1st, and you had them there on August 29th. So
Yeah, I have an experience with the ADU build in which we had like 3 or 4 inspectors that were continuously turning around. So my contractor already knew, because if you do work around the area, you probably see the same inspectors when you do kind of any type of new constructions. So he knew exactly from who was assigned to the job, who was going to look at what. Because
Mhm.
they already knew, like you said, you have your preference. Some people were like, well, your HVAC is like whatever, or some people would be like, well, you need like flashing around the unit or something like that. But he already knew like what inspector was going to concentrate on what, and then he would be like, well, this one is coming, so we're going to have to stay there for like 2 hours, because we're some people you could just leave the unit and then they will inspect it themselves, and some people he was like, no, I need to be present for this inspector when he comes, because he's going to have like 1,000 questions.
Yeah, and I feel, and that's what comes with kind of like the experience in territory. So if it had been me, I would have been tried to build that relationship and do that, because I've done that. I've had one of my properties in Milwaukee, man, I kept getting hit by the city. The city kept coming over here because there was trash. The way my properties were, well, this one was that there was kind of like an alley in between in the back, and there was some like apartments behind there, and so something was going on, but trash would be over there by my property, so then I would get hit and everything, and instead of kind of like calling up all mad and stuff like that, I, went the kind of, I used the route of like, hey, I'm trying to protect my tenants of getting hit. Like, it's not, told them about it, and um, just talked to the person, the inspector, and he was very understanding because of the way that I talked to him and built that relationship. And since then, I have not had any problems. It's been a few years now. So I think it's just him uh feeling a little like, I guess, entitled to like having the inspection like go perfect or whatever. Is like, no, like they're there to protect the tenant, not you and stuff. And there's a few other things that he'll bring up that um the inspector saw and everything. So
Mhm.
he
We have to
sounded
wait
like
another
he
week
was
for him to come
shocked
back out,
about it,
and when
really
he shows up again, there's even more. This time, it's, well, the unit looks good, but what about the sewer line? We have to go and do a CCTV of the sewer line to make sure it's properly functioning. Now, at this time, by the way, it was past September 1st. The tenant who wanted to move in is unable to move in, and all of these are items that could have been fixed or dealt with weeks or months ago if it was just mentioned. All of it would have been handled far, far, far in advance. It really just felt like everything had to be handled in the moment for some reason, so I was forced to go and spend $600 for a CCTV of the sewer line that had to be done with one of the approved LA city vendors for some reason. So anyway, whatever. I just want the unit to be done at this point, so I go and pay for it. Welp, wouldn't you know it, even though the sewer line functions properly, at the connection in the middle of the street between my sewer line and the city of Los Angeles, there's a little bit of a crack there. And because of that crack, the inspector says that needs to be fixed before they're able to sign off on the unit and issue the certificate of occupancy. On top of that, guess what? Because that sewer line issue occurs in the middle of the city-owned street, it is going to be $22,000 to go and fix it. So in an effort not to delay things even further, I just requested an exemption that basically says, hey, this unit's fully done. Allow us to rent it out, and I promise, in writing, I will fix the sewer line in the next 60 days. Let's just not delay anything further. The tenant wants to move in. Let's make it easy, and I promise I will get the sewer line done. Well, at this point, it became impossible to reach the inspector. He just ghosted us. I'm talking voicemails were unanswered. Emails were unanswered. I kept getting bounced around from department to department. I left a message with his manager who says, oh, he's just on the site. You're going to have to leave him another voicemail, and he'll call you back in the morning. And I kept doing that over and over and over again. And it took us over a week to hear back. And by the time we heard back, it was, hey, yeah, nothing I can do about that. It's now with the city public works, and now you got to deal with him. Fine. You know what? Whatever. I'm easygoing. I just want this thing to be done. I just don't want the stress. So I moved forward with the $22,000 sewer line repair. Now, keep in mind, at this point, we are well over a month after when the unit should have been signed off. All because the initial inspector didn't want to wait an extra 15 minutes to install an AC condenser line. But then, as soon as I signed the sewer line repair estimate to move forward with the work, I got hit with an I'm absolutely done with this, I am so fed up, I'm over it moment. And that was when they applied to pull the permits with the city to do the work that the city requested. But the city says they won't give me the permits until I give my existing tenants 75 days existing notice that I'm going to be doing work on the sewer line. This is all because their water is going to be turned off for a few hours in the afternoon. Even though they're gone in the afternoon, they work. They won't even notice the water is turned off because they won't even be there. So I reached back out and demanded some type of exemption because the tenants aren't going to be there. It doesn't impact them.
So first, let me read old guy's comment. He's sounding like he was shocked about what it really takes to run an REI business. These are things we go through and talk about weekly in this community. He could learn a lot from us rookies and not be so stressed. And that's what it is. Like, I feel like, and that's why I was like, dude, you've been in this game for 10 plus years, and this is the first hiccup, and now like you're so stressed about it. It's like, first of all, like, I understand like the frustrations, but you're the one that put the tenant in there right before it was like approved. And what seems like a few hours or whatever, he's not thinking about like, yeah, that's the best case scenario when you go in there. But what if when you go work on it, the crack becomes bigger, it takes longer, whatever. So that's the whole reason of giving them a notice to all that, which you could have avoided if you would have just waited for the tenant. But I understand that frustration. And also, like, I feel like he doesn't realize how lucky, I guess I see it as a positive that he was forced to do like the whole CCTV on the septic because they found the crack. And he's talking about adding like 5 units, which is going to increase the load on that septic. So who knows what effect that could have had on the crack, which could have turned into a bad thing for his ADUs in the future. So like, I feel like he's so blocked by his anger right now that he doesn't realize that.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, we had to do the CTV prior to even scoping the sewer line, like the new connection into the main existing house line. We have 2 contractors on the chat, so if they want to chime in. But if the crack is not on your property line, if it's on the sidewalk, on the street, like he said, I'm pretty sure the city had to fix that. I'm not 100% sure, but it sounds like if it's under the sidewalk in the street, because then now they have to dig into the street, right? They would it would have to be the city who fixes that. If it was in your property line, then you would be in charge of that. But yeah, him finding out there's a crack after he built an additional sewage line to the ADU, it's a really bad thing, because for sure that crack would have been backed up, and then you would have more problems not only with your existing tenants but the new tenants that you would have started with. Right?
Yeah, I definitely see his point on the whose responsibility, and I feel like because he's so pressured because he already had a tenant in there and all that stuff, like he could have fought that fight, because I really do think that should have been the city. But then again, the city might have been like, well, you're the one that's putting additional units and increasing the load or whatever. I don't know, but because he's already kind of on a short timeline, he's kind of like he spent the money and couldn't fight for it, which is fine. He's planning to do well at this point, plan to do like 4 or 5 ADUs. So
Yeah, I do think the 75 days is atrocious. Like, you don't need 75 days to
yeah,
like,
75 days is definitely, I think, I
I don't know
feel
if that's correct.
I feel like he, yeah, because
You need
75
maybe
days.
you need to give the neighborhood notice if you're gonna block off the street. Let's say you're gonna leave. This is something that I had to research. If you're gonna have to block up the street to put a sewer line, you do have notice of the neighborhood because then they have to divert the traffic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like he pissed them off, especially when he was like, so it's funny because he initially he made it seem like it had been months that the inspector ghosted him, but it was only like a little bit over a week. And so it's like, dude, they work. And I know because I had the same thing with having to set up the utilities here on the land. And like, man, it was a pain to get the guy to just give me an address and like and finally he managed to get it, but like they're out there, and same thing with the electric guy. He's out there doing work, so it's so it's definitely uh annoying, but it's kind of it is what it is. Like it's the government.
Yeah,
It's the
you
same
do.
everywhere you go. Like I said, I'm over here in Texas, and it's the same freaking thing that I had to wait so long for things to get done and for you to be on them because they will forget. They will forget.
Yeah, if people don't remember, Violeta, she bought a plot of land. She had to infill the plot of land, and then she bought a manufactured home to be put onto the plot of the what is it that you did, like the concrete, to lay the
It's
concrete.
it's not concrete. It's like the gravel thing. I
Okay.
forget what it's called, but it's just like, yeah, gravel
And then she
on
had to
board.
have
Whatever.
utilities connected prior for
Yeah, I
her.
had to put a septic. I had to run all the power lines. Luckily, my neighbor let me go off of where his ended, so I just gave him some money to let me go off of his poles and then just do the rest over here. And then the water line had to come all the way over here, and so that was definitely a process, and it definitely can be frustrating. But again, I think what helped me was because I've been investing in real estate, so I kind of know, like, just could
This,
be patient. But this guy is not like, it's so funny.
how long do you think it took you from starting the process of putting utilities to your plot of land to like the end where it actually was connected?
So, like, I think we finished the loan in May. And then from May and June, and mind you, they had been doing this before, and then it was a process because we had to do the layout, the plans of where we wanted the poles. We had to wait for the electric guy to come over here and see where, and basically map out. And then we had to get the paperwork to send to the neighbor for him to sign it. And that was a pain in the butt to get that piece of paper for him. Like, we had to call so many times and stuff. And two, at Homestead talked about bureaucracy can also be costly. And yeah, because we had to be in an RV at an RV park while we waited for all this stuff. And things that you think are simple, like, okay, dude, just send me the form that I need to have the neighbors sign. So that took a while. And then after that, it was like they told me like 4 to 6 weeks to get approved because we had to send the payment to somewhere in Virginia. That's where the headquarters was. And then they had to like process the payment, and then they put you on the schedule. And so, so like, yeah, and that's just for the electric. And then the septic was another issue, and the water line and all that stuff. So yeah, it's a freaking process for sure.
Yeah. I'm not going to play any more of that video, but he goes on to say that he's going to have to repair the sidewalk after they dig into it.
Mhm.
And you are digging, if he's correct, if they're digging it through the street, then you are going to have to repair the sidewalk. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we wanted to come and talk about Graham's journey. But yeah, I do agree with like the fact that if he is like a multimillionaire
Hmm.
now and he doesn't want to invest in real estate anymore, then he shouldn't. He should move out of real estate and sell everything. But to almost like buy the dog that fed him for the beginning of his years, with like, he got into real estate. His whole YouTube channel is about real estate and how to invest in real estate and build wealth to real estate. And then to say like it's not worth it anymore, I feel like that's detrimental to like his following. Or I don't know. I didn't follow him from the beginning, but I think in the long term, it's not a good message to have. I feel.
Yeah, if it definitely he paints it like, obviously investing in real estate is not smooth sailing all the time, but he definitely like kind of beat on real estate because of this little hiccup, and it felt like he just had an issue with the inspector, which can happen, and he allowed that to cloud his whole thing, because now you fixed all the things, you fixed the septic, you have the stuff done, and that was the biggest hurdle, and now you could proceed to do the ADUs, and you knew that you met with the inspector, you could have built that relationship and maybe had an easier time, more than likely. Now sometimes you do get that inspector that's just a jerk, but um yeah, to just basically just up and quit, and especially when there's so many options, there's so many other states you can invest in.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that was our rant on the reaction video.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah,
Probably
we
do
are
some more if
definitely.
we find
I
another one
can
that's rent.
definitely feel like more people are leaving real estate, in general, like from the gurus, big people. We're talking.
Yeah, I think like old guy. I don't know his actual name, so I'm just it's old guy. But
Yeah.
so yeah, when things go smoothly, it's very rewarding after getting through the rough times. And I think I forgot what YouTube video I was watching, but it's because the problem was that a lot of people had kind of like easy deals because of the whole COVID situation and the low interest rates and everything like that. So everything was pretty easy. And definitely when I started, it was definitely with my first properties. And then now this past year and stuff is definitely a little bit, rougher waters, I guess. And so people can't handle it, like they want to quit and stuff. And I mean, and that's their choice, right? But don't make it seem like it's the worst thing ever.
Hmm.
It's just
I
like
got
any
you.
other business.
Yeah, I got you this far, but in like 10 years, when I'm a multimillionaire and I'm like bashing on real estate, you guys can make reactions about my
Oh yeah,
videos.
if I ever start doing that, definitely call me out. Definitely call me out if I'm like, I hate this. I hate real estate. I'm getting out.
Yeah,
But right now, I like
forget real estate. I'm a multimillionaire. Okay. I think we should stop there, and then we'll see you guys next week when we get something else to record. And please check out Real Estate Have Us, and we'll see you.
yeah, bye.